Okay, good morning. So let us start the lesson. I want to ask you one question. I want to give you a little bit of time to think about it so that we can continue the lesson. Do you remember yesterday we talked about analytic geometry, the connection between geometry and algebra, and we learned about two formulas. The distance formula, if I give you 2 points with coordinates x sub a, y sub a, means the x coordinate of point A, the y coordinate of point B, of point A, and the same thing for B. We learned two formulas. We learned that if we want to find the distance between these 2 points, we can use this distance formula to write x sub a minus x sub b. The difference between the x coordinates squared plus the difference between y coordinates squared. And it doesn't matter here. You don't need to be worried about in which order you put the numbers there, because at the end you will square it and then it becomes positive. Yeah, please do not talk. Thank you. Okay, and then we go for finding the midpoint. If M is the midpoint of this line segment, midpoint of AB, then we learn that for finding the x coordinates of M, I take the average between the x coordinates of these 2 points, which are at the end of this line segment, and for the y coordinate we do the same. Okay, we want to solve some nice examples probably today about these problems. But one question that I want to ask, and I want you to think about it: what happens if I give you this point A and this point B, and I give you the coordinates? For example, I give you XA, YA, XB, and YB. I give the coordinates here. This time, instead of asking you about the coordinate of the middle point, I ask you what happens if I divide my line segment into 3 equal pieces instead of making it 2. So this one and this one and this one, I assume that they are equal in size. And then I give you a point M. Let me change the names. Let me call this P. Let me call this point Q. Okay? They are no longer the midpoints, yes? But now I want you to find the coordinates of point B and the coordinates of point Q. Okay? If you want, of course, I can give you numbers if you think working with numbers is easier for you. I want to think about how we can find P, the coordinates of P and the coordinates of Q. Of course, the detail, I will do it for you here. If you can do it, that's better, much better even. Can you find a formula? So you see, that is a formula that gives me the x and y coordinates of the point M, which is the midpoint in terms of the coordinates of this head and that head. I'm asking you the same question, not for the midpoint, but for point P and Q. I subdivide my line segment into 3 equal pieces. I get 2 points. Find the coordinates of those. Is the question clear? I don't know how the algebra will be involved, but in principle we should be able to do that. So I was thinking that, okay, we can start today's lesson by this problem. Okay, I want to give you a little bit of time to think. Okay. Okay, this is a translation of an example in the book. I think it is a good example, so let me just write it here. Let us go back to the problem that I asked you. Do you have any idea how to do this problem? So this is, you see, if you just want to think about algebra, it doesn't help. So in analytic geometry, so you have to have a good skill in both subjects, algebra and geometry. So you need to be able to think simultaneously from algebraic point of view and geometric point of view. Yes, Simon?
And instead of dividing by 2, you do xa plus xb divided by 3, and that way you get 1/3 of the way from A to B on the x.
No, but if that is intuition, you have to argue for the intuition. So if you just feel, because the midpoint we divide by 2, for this point we divide by 3, probably it's not a good idea, yes? But if by the way, which one is you should divide by 3? If you want to calculate P, you should divide by 3, or if you want to find Q, you should divide by 3. So how do you know? So what is the difference? Do you think, because you know that the nature usually doesn't prefer the left over right, yes? So if you think the formula for dividing by 3 is for the left one, which is closer to A, then why it is not the case for the one which is closer to B? This argument is extremely powerful in physics and mathematics. So there is nothing distinguished about P. Yes? So when you say that dividing by 3 will give me the formula for P, you need to think in this way, why P has some advantage over Q. Apparently there are no advantages. So this immediately tells you that probably this is not correct. Just adding dividing by 3. Yes, Rasmus, do you have any idea?
Not use vectors.
Yes, how?
If we consider the vector A to B,
Yes.
then we can multiply that vector by 1/3 to
Yes.
get a vector that is pointing from A to B, but only goes a third of the distance there. And then now if we would consider this vector as a point, or the components of this vector as the 2 coordinates for a point, then we would get like the line A to B, but like what how we say, parallel transported to the origin. So then we need to add the coordinate, or the.
I understand what you
we
say.
can add the
So let me
OA to it.
help you a little bit. This is not the way that I was thinking, but that is very, very, I think, a powerful trick and technique. So it means that your understanding of vectors is quite good. So you see that we learned the vector, and now Rasmus was able to connect the idea we learned in Math 1C to this idea that we are going to solve this problem. So you see, there is no track of vectors in this problem. This I want you to learn. If you want to be good in mathematics, you have to be creative. So now Rasmus is connecting the idea of vectors, which is probably totally unrelevant to the problem here, because that's not a problem on vectors. But if you have a good understanding of how to work with vectors, I agree with you that we can do that. But let me try to see. So what he is saying is that this vector AP, for example, is a third of vector AB. First of all, do you agree or not?
Yes.
Let us review something. Could I write AP as vector is 1/3 of vector BA? Do you buy this one as well? Which one is correct? The left one or the right one?
Right.
The left one, because I told you, do you remember what is the meaning of multiplying a vector by a number? It means that you need to keep the vector parallel, but the size of the new vector is that number multiplied by the size of the previous vector. And if this number is positive, they have to point to the same direction, and if the number is negative, they point in opposite directions. If I ask you what is the direction of AP, it is clear it goes from A to yes, it goes from A to P, so the tip of the arrow should be here. And if I ask you where is AB, AB is from here, the tip of the arrow should be there. And they are pointing to the same direction, and 1/3 is positive, so this is the correct equation, not the second one. Yes? So what he is saying is that, okay, we can realize that AP is this function, is this vector. Okay, now, so can you tell me what can I write for AP? So that is extremely important. Let me just review it for you here. If you have missed this in vectors, we can talk about here. So if I give you 2 points forget about this problem momentarily. Let me give you a point A with coordinates xa and ya, and let me give you another point here, B, with coordinates xb and yb. Yes? Now if I connect A to B as a vector, do you remember we studied that vectors can also be written as numbers, yes? But the numbers are called components of that vector. Okay, can you tell me what are the components of that vector? Okay, let me ask you this question. If I take this one O, and then I connect this O to this and write vector OA, yes? What is the components of this vector? Can you tell me? This is not hard. How much it goes to the right, how much it goes up. Yes, how much it goes to the right? Exactly this number. And how much it goes up? Exactly YA. So you see, if I start from the origin and draw this vector, the components of the vector is exactly equal to the coordinates of the tip of the vector. Yes? And if I ask you the same question for vector OB, what is your answer now? Vector from here to here is what? XB and YB. Yes? But we had some rule called the Scholl rule. Yes? If I ask you what are the components of AB, I can write it as AO plus OB. Do you agree? This we had in vectors. So that is the Scholl rule. But OA and AO are not the same. If I interchange it, I have to multiply it by a negative sign. Yes? And then I write OB. Do you remember I told you and we did the exam? If I ask you what is minus OA, if I give you the components, I have to multiply the components by negative sign. So it becomes negative XA and negative YA. And then if I ask you what is OB, OB is exactly this one. And then we learn how to add these two. So it becomes XB minus XA and YB minus YA. Yes? So let me write this. That's an extremely important point. So if A has XA and YA not as components, as coordinates, because that is one point. And then if B has the coordinates XB and YB, then from these 2 points I can construct a vector AB. But we learned that every vector has 2 components. What is the first component? According to the formula that I got, the first component of vector AB is the x-coordinate of the final point minus the x-coordinate of the initial point. And for the y-coordinate of the final point minus y-coordinate of the initial point. I really want you to write this somewhere and memorize it after understanding it. So this is a formula. If I tell you why this is, what is the benefit of this, you should tell me. You give me 2 points in the coordinate system, and from those 2 points I can construct 2 vectors, either vector AB or vector BA. But here I have decided to give you vector AB. It's extremely important that you start with the one with the final point minus the one with the initial point. So if I ask you what are the components of vector AB, you write AB is equal to this difference. This is the final point, final, yes, minus initial. And the same thing for here, final, initial. Okay, so this is something I want you to learn just today. And now I want to follow your method. So we learned that this is valid. This vector is a third of this vector, because I told you that I have divided this into 3 equal pieces. Yes? Now can you tell me what can I write AP according to this rule? What can I write AP? P is a point. I don't know the coordinates, so let me call it x of p, y of p. Still I don't know them. Okay? But can you tell me what can I write for AP as a vector? What can I write?
xp minus a
xp minus xa, thank you. And yp minus ya. Yes? And then what can I write for AB? I can write what? XB minus XA and YB minus YA. Yes? And then we know that AP is a third of AB. This means that AB is 3 times AP. Do you agree? Okay, instead of AB, I can write this. And instead of, I write 3 times AP. So 3 times AP, yes, XP minus XA, YP minus YA. Everyone agrees? Okay, and then we learned that if I want to multiply a vector, do you remember you had 2 problems in the exam? If you want to multiply a vector with components by a number, you have to take this number, multiply to the first component, multiply to the second component, yes? So then it becomes xb minus xa, yb minus ya is equal. If I multiply there, it becomes 3xp minus 3xa, and then it becomes 3yp minus 3ya. Yes? Now I have this vector equals to that vector. This only happens if the first component is equal to the first component and the second component is equal to the second component. Yes? So this will give me this rule. This will give me this system. The first number xb minus xa is equal to 3xp minus 3xa, and the second one is yb minus ya is equal to 3yp minus 3ya. Yes? And now I will leave this one to you. I will do this one to me here on the board, because that's exactly the same thing, except for x I have y. But don't get confused. In this equation, what is my target? My target is to find which one of them?
xp.
xp, yes? Because all of them are assuming that this is given. So now let us see. I have to make my unknown alone. So I move this one to the other side. So let us do it in our head because there is no enough space. So I have xb here. I move minus 3xa to the left. It becomes positive 3xa, but one of them is gone. How much is left? 2. 2xa equals to what? Equals to 3xp. So what Simon predicted is not totally how do you say, unrelevant or irrelevant. Yes, it is not totally irrelevant, but you miss this factor. You see, xp, so a division by 3 happens. Because I want to make xp alone, I divide by 3, and then this becomes 2xa plus xb. This is the correct formula which you missed. So a factor of 2 is missing. Now the factor of 2 is reasonable, yes, because you want to make p closer to a. Yes? So this means that you should do it somehow, that this number, this xa has more weight somehow, yes, because it should be closer to this one. So that is what we get. And thank you very much, Rasmus. I didn't mean to do it in this way, but when you talked about vectors, I realized that you know everything. This is not that was not the method that I wanted to describe. Yes, We want to talk about this problem from different perspectives, because if you want to learn mathematics, it is good to understand how you can connect these ideas. Just solving the problems that you know how to do is not very fun. So this is an extremely important and powerful tool. Do you remember we studied about vectors? The motivation about vectors was more or less physics. We wanted to have different types of quantities that also contain directions. But this is the application of vectors within the mathematics itself. So we were able to solve this problem, which was not a vector problem at all. This is very important. This problem is not designed for vectors. But if you understand vectors, you can use it to solve the problem in this way. Is that understandable? But of course, I have to complete it. What is your prediction for this one? What is y sub p? It becomes 2ya plus yb divided by 3. Let me test your understanding now. What is your prediction about q? Without calculations now. Yes?
You do it the same way, but you have...
What is the prediction of the formula? Can you predict what will happen if I do the calculations?
xa plus
2xb. Yes? It would be 2xa plus... Let me test your understanding once more. We can have this problem, by the way, in a very different ways. This is I want you to learn. I want you to learn how to switch between different ideas in mathematics. Otherwise, it's not very useful. So that is a very extremely important tool. I really want you to appreciate this method and then learn it. Okay, so here, let me write the formula here for you. xp is 2xa plus what? xb divided by 3, and yp is equal to 2ya plus yb divided by 3. This, you can calculate the second one yourself. That's it's exactly the same. But the prediction that Simon made was also completely correct. If you don't believe, you can calculate. But what is your starting point? Can you tell me this one? The prediction is correct. It is xa plus 2xb over 3, and then yq will be ya plus 2yb divided by 3. The prediction, I agree with you 100%. But can you tell me if you wanted to find q first, for example, what is the equation, vector equation that I will start with? So if I want you to test your understanding, did you learn the vector method? I started from this vector equation and I got that algebraic equation at the end. If I wanted to find q first, from which equation, vector equation, do you start? Yes?
Would you say BQ equals a third of BA?
A third of BA, this is one possibility. Or I can write AQ is 2/3 of AB. That is also possible. So it doesn't matter. You can start with this one and do the calculations, or you can do that one that Oscar mentioned, do the calculation, it will be the same. Is that understandable? So, thank you very much, Rasmus. This is one thing. But let us solve it another way. I want ideas from you. Assume that you don't know anything about vectors. Still, you can solve the problem. Another idea. So, I will clean the vectors. Don't be distracted by vectors now, because the problem was not vector. The reason that I like this method very much is because the problem is not in the context of vectors at all. We use what we learned in vectors to solve a problem in a different, different area, something like that. If you can learn these jumps, it means that your skill in mathematics is really improving. Okay.
We could use trigonometry again, maybe?
Yes. I want to hear from you. Okay, so let me try to clean the board. Where are these? Okay, I can keep it here. The good point about having two whiteboards, we can raise it here, and then we can. But I have to be. Yes, more or less the picture is seen in the. Yeah, here. Good. Okay, so now tell me, what do you want to do?
Okay, well, so, I mean, I just did what we did yesterday, but with all of these, so
Exactly.
you just make a triangle with...
Yes, so let me just draw the picture here. So what you are saying is that that is the same method that we want to do yesterday. So this is also good. If you learned what I did, this is also something that you need to learn. You need to think, okay, I know the solution. Bobak presented it yesterday for the midpoint. The first thing that might come to your mind should be this. Can I modify the same method for the new problem? Yes, this is extremely important skill that you have to learn. Okay, so here again, I am just trying to have the same picture here, of course, in a smaller version. Okay, so what do you say, Oscar? You say that we can continue the method yesterday.
Yeah, so
Yes.
first the angle...
So we called it alpha, for
Yes,
example.
alpha.
Yes.
And then, so we have...
For example, let us focus on P for the time being.
Yes, P.
Yes. So what I have to do, I have to make the right angle triangles, yes?
Yes.
So here. And let me call it, I don't know, M, and let me call this point N if needed.
Okay, so... Okay, well, I guess in this case, the cosine of A...
Cosine of alpha
is...
in the smaller triangle.
Yeah, in the smaller triangle would be AM
AM
divided by AP.
divided by AP, yes.
Yes. And then I guess the cosine of alpha is also equal to AP.
In the bigger one, yes?
It's the bigger.
It becomes what?
AN
AN
divided by AP.
AP. So this means that I am calculating the same thing
AP, right?
in two different B, yes. I'm calculating the same quantity in two different ways, so they have to match.
Yes.
So this means that AM over AP should be equal to AN over AB.
Yes. And we know AB is equal to 3AP.
Yes, so then this means that AM over AP is equal to AN over, instead of AB, I put 3AP.
AP.
Yes?
Okay, and then we multiply them by 3AP.
3AP, yes. So then this becomes 3AM.
Yes.
Equals to what?
AN.
AN.
Yes.
Yes.
Wait, hold on. No, wait, this is...
That's correct.
This is correct.
Yes.
Yes.
And then AM is from here to here.
Yes.
AN is from here to here, yes?
Yes.
So instead of this one, in this picture, of course, what can I write instead of AM?
AP.
I can write...
No, X.
I can write...
What? P.
XP, this is XP,
Yeah, XP.
this is XA,
Yes.
this is XB.
Yes.
So AM is from here to here, it is from here to here, it is XP minus XA.
Yes.
And on the right hand side I will have AN, which is from here to here,
Yes.
which is what? XB minus XA.
Yes.
And that's it. You solve this equation, you will get the same formula back. So how? You can just immediately do that. 3x sub p minus 3x sub a is equal to xp minus xa. And by the way, let us don't solve it, yes? Is this the same equation or not? You see, 3xp minus 3xa minus 3xa, xp minus xa. So you see, you got the same thing in a different way. It's still another idea. I want to think about another idea. Yes, please.
I was just going to ask if you can please repeat the 3 a.m. part.
So here, I multiplied this and that by 3AP because I want to get rid of fractions. So if I multiply 3AP by the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, what happens? This AP and that AP are the same numbers. They are cancelled. 3 times AM is left. On the other side, 3AP and 3AP are left. AM is left. And then after that, I continue. There's still another idea. Any ideas? The idea shouldn't be hard. Think about the midpoint again. So how can I use, because we know the formula for midpoints, can I somehow use this to solve this problem, even though here, for the midpoint, I divide my line segment into 2 parts, but here I'm dividing my line segment into 3 parts. Can I somehow use the midpoint formula? This time, Tim, yes? No? Yes, you?
Well, I just P is the midpoint of AQ.
Exactly. So P is not the midpoint of AB, but P is the midpoint of AQ. Yes? And Q is the midpoint of PB. Okay? This might be relevant or not relevant, I don't know. But at least this is an observation. You need to broaden your point of view to see these relations. Okay? I don't know if it is going to work or not, but let us try to make it work. I don't know. Let us pause the video, and I want you to understand that is it possible this is working or not? If it is working, you can present your method and I will write it on the board. Yes? Try to do that again. You see, this is the way of learning mathematics. Just problem solving and finish. Don't be happy with that. You need to understand what is going on. And after a while, it comes hard, but if you learn it, you will definitely love it. If you don't love it, you will definitely like it, or you don't dislike it. Yes? Yes. For me, it happened that I start loving it, but this depends on the personality and types of your problems. Okay, so I will pause the video. I myself want to think about this, and you can also think. Let me give you a little bit of guidance about the way that you need to think. First of all, everyone agrees, let us focus on x sub p. Yes? So, x of a and x of b are given. You want to find x sub p. Okay? So what you know that p is in the middle of AQ, but unfortunately q itself is not known yet. Okay? So what can I write, for example? I can write that xp is equal to xa plus xq divided by 2. Do you agree with this one?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, because p is in the middle of AP. But how many unknowns are related in this equation? How many subjects are there?
3 subjects and 2 unknowns.
Now, so the unknowns are subjects, yes. 3 parameters, but 2 of them are unknowns. By one equation, I cannot solve 2 unknowns. Is that understandable? So this is hopeless. So don't continue for this before. So you need to have a strategy before starting manipulating this algebraically. Okay? So this is one equation. It is good, but it is not enough. Any other equation? Do you have any other equations? Yes?
xq is equal to xp plus xp.
Yes, another equation. xq is what? xp
xp plus xp.
xp divided by 2. Okay, then how many unknowns are involved here? 2. What are they? We are lucky. The same. You see how many unknowns are involved? 2. And in the new equation, again the same unknowns are involved. This equation is one piece of information but 2 unknowns. This equation is one piece of information and 2 unknowns. Now if we put them together, how many pieces of information I have? 2. And how many unknowns I have? 2. Whenever this happens, you should be happy in mathematics, because the number of the pieces of information that you have is exactly the same number of unknowns you have. So in principle, we should be able to solve it. But you shouldn't get confused because the algebra might become complicated. But what is the point? The point is that you can calculate one of them at a time. So decide about which one do you want to calculate. The point P or the point Q. You need to decide. Which one do you want to do right now, for example? For example, let us say P. Yes? So you need to get rid of the other one. So you go there, you write XA over 2, but your goal is to get rid of that. But then instead of this one, you can put this expression. Yes? It becomes algebraically harder, but it is done. If I ask you how many pieces of information you have in this a little bit complicated equation, how many pieces? How many pieces? One equality, one piece of information. And what is the only unknown left for you? XP. So you have one piece of information, one unknown. That is enough. So in principle, I should be able to solve it. Okay? This is the way that you have to think. But then the practical problems arises. So you need to find a way to solve it. Okay? Now I want to wait for you, hear from you. If you want to solve it, you need to have XP as a subject. Do you remember that problem of finding a subject was the problem that all of you made some mistakes when you were doing the first exam? And now you realize why that question was so important. So you have how many letters you have? X of P1, X of A, X of B, 3. But what is my subject? XP is my subject. So you should be able to learn to use algebra to extract that alone, to make it alone on the one side. So what is your proposal here? To make it faster. Yes, Ali?
Get rid of 2.
This fraction.
Yes.
These two. By rescaling it by 2. So I would write and repeat this, learn these tricks. After learning them, you have to send them your memory. Otherwise, you have to solve every problem from scratch every time. This will not happen, okay? It's not possible. So I will multiply this by 2. Do it in your head. Trust yourself. I multiply this by 2. I multiply this by 2. What is the best way to do it?
Just remove.
Yes, when I multiply this by 2, of course I can multiply this by 2 and multiply by this by 2, but that's the bet. It's not good. This 2 that I want multiply, this will cancel that 2. So what is left for me? Just XP plus XB divided by 2. I would say this is better than this one because at least I have one fraction. Here I had 2 fractions. So that's a success, yes, because I make it simpler. But I want to make this one alone on one side. What is the next suggestion? Tell me.
I have a question.
No, before the question, give me the suggestion. Yes?
Get rid of the 2.
Again, another 2 is left for me. Multiply everything by 2. So what will happen? 2x sub p is equal to, when I multiply this by 2, 2 and 2 are cancelled. So I will get 2xa plus xp, plus xb. Yes? But this is a little bit strange because we don't have the quite correct answer. That's the wrong answer.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, might be I have made a mistake somewhere. Yes?
When you
rescaled it.
multiplied by 2.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. This is 4.
It's 4.
This is 4, thank you. So that was not your question. You wanted to criticize me, yes? Yeah, that's different. You said that you have a question. Yes. Yes, you are right. I multiplied this by 2. I forgot to multiply the denominator by 2. Now that's the correct one. Agree? Now, this is my subject. So I move this to the left. How much is that? 4x sub p minus xp. What is that? 3xp is equal to 2xa plus xb. And then I am done. So xp becomes what? 2xa plus xb divided by 3. The same formula. So you see, you have to learn thinking in this way. Try to see the same problem from different perspectives. So this is the third method, yes? We could solve the problem. And I will not continue for this one. There is one natural question. If you are curious, you should have a question for me. What is your question?
Is there any other way to do it?
That's a good question. I don't know. Might be you can discover. But more than that, if you are a mathematician, you don't stop here. You have a natural question. Mathematicians have a natural tendency to generalize things. Yes? What is the question?
How do we find xq?
No, xq is not... No, you can solve it. So that's more or less solved.
Yes.
No, what is the next question?
Next question.
What is the next question? Not for this problem. Think wider, okay? Try to broaden your point of view.
What if there are like 5 or
5 points, 6 points. Yes, that's a natural question. We learned, what about if I divide by 2? Then I told you a question, if you divide by 3. A very natural question is that, can I find a formula for dividing a particle, for dividing a line segment into n equal pieces and being able to find the coordinates of each point? Is that understandable? So the next step, I divide by 4. The next step, I divide by 5. Then I have to give up. Every time I have to do it if I want to solve the problem. So usually mathematicians think, let us divide it to n equal pieces and find a formula which works for every n. Then I am relieved, yes? Whenever you give me, I put it in that formula, I'm fine. And I really, especially those people who want to join this mathematics competition, I really want you to solve this and find a formula for you. Okay? So what my question, I designed the question here for you. I will not solve it. This would be higher than the level of this course. I will not continue. The algebra becomes a little bit complicated. And then you realize which of these methods are more efficient. I will call Rasmus' method the most efficient one. Okay? So using vectors. So what I'm saying is that this is A, this is B. I will point P1, P2, P3, and then I will continue until the very last Pn. Okay, so 1, 2. So this, by the way, how many pieces are there if I have n points? This line is divided into how many pieces? When you see this is n.
n minus 1.
N plus 1.
N plus, well,
Yes, because if you have one midpoint, it is divided to 2 parts. If you have 2 midpoints, it is 3 parts. So if you have n midpoints in the middle,
if you
it is
include
n plus
A and B,
1.
If you include A and B, wouldn't that be...
No, I haven't included. P1 is
Okay,
not
so if
this
it's only
one.
the P, then it's plus 1.
Yes.
Then it's n.
So, but this is n plus 1 pieces, yes?
Yes.
So I would write it as, yes, n equal n plus 1 pieces. Okay, I want you to think about this problem and find the formula for the coordinates of all these points, not just the first point. Yes? But that is just only for interested students. Okay. So now let us go back. This is chosen from the book. This problem is exactly at the level of the book. And I tried to translate it using this application. And it is not in the exercises. It is solved in the book itself. But I don't want you to look at the solution, read the problem and try to solve it. So this is exactly at the level of the question that you have in the book. I want to pause the video and wait for you. And today is a long lesson, so I think I will stop a little bit after teaching finished. Okay, so you can have time to practice yourself. Okay, so in GeoGebra here you see, let us check. We have 4 points. Do you remember the coordinates? One point is point O, of course, which is 0 and 0, yes? Yeah, this point. So you see it here. Oh, it's not here visible. Just okay, now you see it. So let me change this point. This is not a good name. So here the point should be called O. So this is the point O equals to 0 and 0. Yes, 0 and 0. Is it Swedish keyboard? No. Okay, so this is point. I don't know why this is A here. Let me from the beginning. I have O equals to 0 and 0. This is my point O. And then I will have, which one is point A? Do you remember? So point A is 1 and 0. So let me just click here. Point 1 and 0 is here. And then point B is 1 and 1 is here. And then point C is 0 and 1. Okay. And then the question tells you that you have a point on the line passing through O and B. I go here, take this, and then draw the line passing through O and B. This is my line. Yes? Then you choose a point on this line. and that point is supposed to be called P. Let me choose one random point here and change the name to P. Yes? This is the point P now. And then I draw a line segment from the P to what? To A. And I draw a line segment from P to C. And then I find the midpoint between P and A by going to this and finding the midpoint between P and A. This is called D. And then I go to the point between midpoint between P and C, and I call it E. Yes? And then I take this line segment and connect them. And I find the midpoint here between these 2 points. And you see, it is F, not B. Is that understandable? So that's exactly the question. So you see, it is not guaranteed that the point, the middle of this point is B. So you have to do some fine-tuning. So you see that I just randomly did it, and when I got the midpoint between E and D, it is F. But according to the problem, it is supposed to be P. So it means that you have to fine-tune it. For example, I will take the point P and make it closer. Okay, so it means that this is not always guaranteed. You have to find that P in a wise way so that F and B coincide. Yes, and then hopefully you see that I come here, and then I don't know if yes, I hope that this is, yeah, it's very hard, of course, to fine-tune it exactly with hand and eye, but I don't know, this is getting something F to be, so I need to find the coordinates of P. So you see, it is 1.52, if you see. And your prediction was 1.5. So the reason that I cannot do it, because I cannot do it exactly with my hands, yes? What you calculate is correct. So if we agree that this is the case, yes, I cannot make it better than that. Yes, 51 is probably the one that I can do. But according to Simon, and then I agree because I see the solution in the book, the answer should be 1.5. Yes? So this means that I have to choose this P in a way that this will happen. And of course in GeoGebra, even if you see using GeoGebra, it is not that easy to fine-tune that, but mathematical calculation, that is the power of mathematics. You can just calculate without having any computer tool in your hand. Okay? And I want to go back and see how we can solve the problem. How many of you solved the problem? Yes, let us go back. Let me just pause the video. If you want to solve this problem, you don't need to be worried about having a very nice picture. Okay? So what you have point O here and point A here. Assume that this is one unit, and point B here and point C here. So this is the square that you have, O, A, B, and C. And then you take the line from O to B according to what I did in GeoGebra. I don't know, should I choose P here or should I choose P there? We don't know yet. But let us just choose P somewhere. Yes? Do I know the coordinates of P? Do I know the coordinates of P? No, of course. Okay, so let us write it as A and B simply. We don't know these numbers. Okay? We want to find them. But how? I want to, after doing that, the midpoint and the midpoint here is important. So this is called D, this is called E. Okay? Can I find the midpoint here? This midpoint is the middle of these line segments. So I have to add A. What are the coordinates of A? 1 and 0. So A plus 1 divided by 2 is the x coordinate. B plus 0 divided by 2 is just B over 2. So that is the coordinate of D. Is that understandable? So D is the middle of PA. So I add this coordinate with that and divide by 2. I get the x coordinate of this point. I do the same thing for B. I will get this one. And I can do the same thing here. Okay, can you help me to do that? This is my point, and this is my point. This is the middle. What are the coordinates of C? 0 and 1. So what I have to do, I have to take this one. Don't put equality for points. We put equality for vectors. Okay? So I will take A and 0, add them, divide by 2. It becomes A over 2. And then what? I will take B and add it to 1 and divide by 2. Yes? So that is what I have so far. But according to the problem, the midpoint of DE, I want to fine-tune it in a way that when I calculate the midpoint of E and D, it becomes exactly B. Yes? Okay, but how can I calculate the midpoint? The midpoint of ED, or DE is better, yes? So can you tell me, how can I calculate the midpoint of DE? I have to take this one and that one and find the average. So it means that I take A over 2, I take A plus 1 over 2, I add them and then divide it by 2. Yes? And then I will do the same thing for B. What happens here? I will take B over 2 plus B plus 1 over 2 and then divide it by 2. Yes or no? Okay, but this is algebraically messy, so let us simplify it. How should I simplify it in your head? I multiply everything by 2. These 2 and that 2 are gone. This 2 becomes 4. I don't make the mistake again. But if 2 is gone and this 2 is gone, A plus 1 becomes 2A plus 1. Yes? And then I go here. I do the same thing. What happens? 2B plus 1 divided by 4. Agree? Yes or no?
Yes.
So this is the midpoint according to my calculations. But according to the problem, this midpoint and point B should coincide. I know the coordinates of B. What are the coordinates of B? 1, 1. According to the problem, this is the coordinate of B. According to my calculation, these are the coordinates of B. They should be the same. Yes? So it means that 2A plus 1 over 4 should be 1. 2B plus 1 over 4 should also be equal to 1. Yes? And then I need to find A. I multiply by 4, so it becomes 2A plus 1 is equal to 4. Move 1 to the other side, it becomes 3. And then A becomes 3 halves. Yes? And for the same calculation, B becomes 3 halves. And then what you have to write as the answer are the coordinates of the point P, which is 3 over 2, 3 over 2 exactly. So that was the problem in the book. This is actually a good way to do it. So you see, it is not that easy as the Math 1C problems. So you need to think about the problem a little bit. Any questions here? Yes or no? Understandable for everyone? Okay, so you see, you have to have, you should analyze the problem in a way. This is extremely important. So in geometry, you actually start developing this skill in you that you can analyze the problem in a very nice way. Okay. I think I should stop here, and I really want you to, after 5 minutes rest or whatever, don't waste the rest of the time. You can practice 25 minutes, okay? One more session, I will talk about these things. There are interesting problems there, even in the book. And then I jump to chapter 1, which from my perspective is the continuation of analytic geometry. Because the next step, here we talked about points. Do you remember? When we talk about geometry, we start with points. What is the next complicated object in geometry? Lines. And that is exactly the chapter 1. They want to talk about lines in analytic way. Yes?
So the first exam will be about this, or
all of them combined. Yeah. there would be up to 4 exams in Math 2C. Okay, so be careful about that. Thank you very much.